Hello, everybody. I'm pleased to say that we're back and we've resolved our link problem with Richard, who I'm very pleased to welcome to the stage. Hopefully, Richard can overcome any ongoing technical problems, and obviously he'll be sharing his presentation with you over the next hour. So please do enjoy. If you were supposed to be in Stephanie's session in the right-hand hall, please do go there now. If you are going across to the post Jeff Patey's session, go across to the left hall and I will join you there very shortly. So welcome, Richard. Good to see you and good luck.
Thank you very much. Hi, folks. I hope you can all hear me. Very glad to be with you again for the Kent Teaching and Learning Conference. I think this is year 3 I've been with you. It's good to be here, though it's a shame I can't see you all. I've got a presentation for you, which I'm going to load up, if I can make that work. I've been having some technical difficulties, so please bear with. I hope you can see that. Mark, are we able to see the presentation?
It's not there just yet. Hopefully, Bev will help you back onto the screen using the share button that's at the bottom. Hopefully that should work. So as we know, it did work in the tech check the other day. So hopefully Bev can help get that onto the screen for you. Are you able to use the share? There we go. Bingo. Brilliant.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, folks, apologies for that. We've got some gremlins, whether they're inside my head or inside my machine. I'm not sure which, but my apologies for keeping you waiting. Okay, that's who I am. That's Richard Beynon. That's me. I'm a senior HMI in the Further Education and Skills Policy Unit. And in the policy unit, we're responsible for what it says, policy, the direction of inspection, the methodology of inspection. We manage the handbooks and we set kind of inspection practice. So this is what I'm going to be talking about across the next hour or so. Just an update on inspection activity that's been taking place. Some reflections on what we found in inspection since inspections recommenced in, well, largely from September, but certainly from the start of this term also. I've picked out some major themes that crop up in successive inspection reports, and I'll run through those. And then just some reminders of stuff that's coming up in the future, really. The T-level survey, which will be affecting, I know, some of you folks. Just some information about skills boot camps. That's another survey we're doing. A reminder about the safeguarding review and sexual harassment review. Some stuff about the spending review, HM Treasury spending review, which affects further education providers. And then a bit of comment about the enhanced inspections focusing on skills needs that will take effect from September. And then I think if we're within time, we might have a go at some questions if anybody has any. So, okay, just to look at inspection outcomes so far this term. I need to be careful what I say with this because quite a lot of the reports still haven't been published. So quite a lot of grade profiles are still provisional. And I don't want to be talking about people's grades when they're not published yet. They're still provisional. So I'm not going to refer to individual providers or colleges. But 74% of full inspections have been good or outstanding. That's a little lower than our norm for last year or last term, indeed. But it's very early days. We've only had a couple of weeks, really, of full inspection. So I wouldn't read too much into that and run away with the idea that inspection outcomes have fallen. It's just where we are at the current time. Um, there have been 21 full inspections. The other activities would be new provider monitoring visits and revisits, re-inspections, that kind of thing. But 21 full inspections, the majority of those have been to independent learning providers or employer providers. That perhaps reflects the fact that we have a huge number of independent learning providers now across the country, and quite a lot of employer providers. Um, there are, just to give you a flavour of the scale of that, there are actually 1,260 independent learning providers now across the country, as against about 165 general further education colleges. So you can see that the ILPs, the independent learning providers, and the employer providers mop up a lot of inspection activity. 13 providers provisionally found good, 2 inadequate. That includes 1 college. 3 found to be RI, again including 1 college. All of those 3 delivered level 6, level 7 apprenticeships, which is a fairly new strand of activity. And 3 providers were found to be outstanding, including 1 college. I can't go into the details of those because their reports aren't published yet, and it wouldn't be right to name them, even though I'd like to be able to name the outstanding. So that's the picture so far this term. It's a building picture. Don't read too much into the stats on that, but I just wanted to give you an update. Okay, so just some reflections, and this covers really last term and this term. Some advice, I suppose, of things that have rattled through reports repeatedly, and things that teams have talked about and lead inspectors have talked about. So some tips and hints, really, I suppose these are. First thing, make sure you know why you do what you do. Thinking back, I know it seems a hell of a long time ago now, pre-pandemic, but thinking back to the start of the EIF, we stressed curriculum, and we stressed that 3-stage view of curriculum. I think we called it the golden thread of intent, implementation, impact. And the make sure you know what you do, why you do what you do is really about the intent there of your curriculum. You need to be able to express to inspectors, if you're inspected, a rationale and a clear intent based on benefits to your students, stroke learners, stroke apprentices. It's not enough that curriculum is just historic. It's not enough that it suits the staff skills and experience and interest. There must be a rationale for a curriculum to meet needs. So think about that and make sure that you can express that clearly, because inspectors will be asking you about that. Um, and as I say in that second bullet there, focus on curriculum content and sequencing. It should be curriculum content and sequencing that are top in your mind with intent. Um, in other words, what are we talking about, and when are we talking about it in the curriculum? And it's helpful to think about curriculum intent, curriculum implementation, and curriculum impact as being in a kind of circle. And you will have in a micro sense, you'll have an intent, you'll implement, and you'll see impact for each stage of the curriculum. and each of those stages builds together within a bigger macro sense of curriculum where there's intent, implementation, and impact. So each stage, each lesson, each topic, each stage of a topic should have an intent, an implementation, and an impact. And those things should roll together to form a coherent curriculum across the year or across the 2 years or whatever it is of a student's course. Um, just some basic things, these are questions that I would always ask if I was in a salon or a classroom or a workshop talking to learners, talking to teachers, trainers, assessors. I'd ask these four questions. Why this? Why are you doing this? And why are you doing it now? What's this about? And how does it improve learners' skills? Why is it placed here in the curriculum at this time? Does it build on? I always say to learners, does what you're doing in this lesson build on what you did last lesson? Did that build on the week before? Did that build on last term, last month, last year? So the why now is important. Is it logical? Does it fit for learners to deal with these things in this order? Why in this way? You might think about whether you're doing something in a theoretical session or in a practical session. Which is the best way to approach a topic or a part of a topic? Is there variation in that to keep learners engaged and to build practical skills as well as theoretical knowledge? Where does this go? Is the sort of the other side to the why now? It's the what comes after this lesson, this topic. Um, is there a logical sequence to that? Are you building towards topic 3 from topic 2? Are you building towards the next logical stage? And the next bullet really says to you, think about curriculum based on knowledge and skills, not qualification units. A curriculum is not a syllabus, and a curriculum is not a specification or an apprenticeship standard. A curriculum is broader than that. So that question about where does this go doesn't just mean it goes to the next unit in the qualification or the syllabus or the next stage of the standard. It should be about it goes to the next knowledge block that's necessary or the next skills block that's necessary. So don't be trapped into dealing with a syllabus or a specification or a qualification unit by unit. Think of it as a map for developing skills and knowledge and be flexible in how you cover those things. Think about them in terms of pedagogical connection, in terms of building knowledge and skills. And really, that's what the whole of this day is about, isn't it? Um, Personal development is often a little bit mechanical, I suppose I'd say. So again, apply that thinking that I've just talked about in the previous bullets. Apply that thinking to personal development too. What skills, what knowledge are you trying to develop? Don't overlook the fact that personal development activities do involve acquiring knowledge, do involve building skills, whether they be personal skills, community skills, interactive group skills, work skills. They are skills and there is knowledge behind that. So think about personal development and behavior and attitudes as well in terms of a curriculum. For apprenticeships, if any of you folks are teaching or managing apprenticeship strands of work, don't forget about the requirements, and that means making sure that all apprentices benefit from at least 20% off the job activity, building knowledge, theoretical knowledge. Um, we're not going to audit that as inspectors, but the Education and Skills Funding Agency will audit your college in terms of that. So make sure that you get that off the job requirement into your implementation for the year and into your map for the year of the apprenticeship. And of course, work with your employers through all stages of the apprenticeship. And that includes in the build up to it, in the design of the apprenticeship. I think it's fair to say that all of the best apprenticeship provision that we ever see is deeply connected to employers and their needs, what they think they can cover in work, what they think they need from their employees. So there should be a rich dialogue with employers in the design stage, the implementation, the intent, the implementation, and in terms of impact. Um, and that link between off the job and on the job should be very solid. Employers should be giving apprentices chance to practice what they've learned in off the job, and in the off the job you should be giving apprentices theoretical underpinning to what they'll do in their jobs. Couple more points. Don't forget the knowledge, don't forget the skills, and be able to talk about those things. Don't just be able to talk to inspectors about, we're on unit 4, we're on unit 6, we're on this part of the curriculum in terms of a specification. Talk about, yes, they're acquiring this parcel of knowledge, if you like, these particular skills, and those are relevant because. So talk about knowledge, talk about skills, think about that when you're approaching your reviews and approaching your reflections on pedagogy and learners' progress as well. Safeguarding, prevent British values. In the weaker provision that we see, those things are dealt with at induction, and then perhaps briefly touched on again, or maybe never touched on again. That doesn't really work. And if we meet apprentices or learners or students who've had their safeguarding briefings, their prevent briefings, their British values input, just in induction, we usually find that by the first term, they've forgotten everything they were told. Induction, as you know, is a really busy time. And to just deliver stuff in induction is a bit like asking students to drink out of a fire hose. It's all coming out at them very fast. They're barely keeping up with the thing. It's a new setting for many of them in the college. It's a new qualification. These are new skills they're learning. Stuff in induction just flies past people. So reinforce as the curriculum goes on, if you want those things to stick and to be meaningful. I talked about personal development a minute ago. Make sure the curriculum for personal development is also enjoyable and challenging. Um, we see a lot of personal development material and we see a lot of personal development sessions, whether they're tutorials or other sessions or activities, that are a bit, to be honest, a bit flat because there's no kind of zip about them. And we sometimes see in the worst provision, we see teachers, trainers, assessors just going through the motions to tick stuff off because it's in the tutorial or the personal development calendar. Um, and those sessions can be a bit lifeless. So try to make personal development engaging and challenging. Stretch the learners as much as you would in academic, technical, vocational areas of their work. Give that personal development a bit of bite wherever you can. Safeguarding, the best safeguarding that we've seen this year and previously in other years is contextualized. It focuses on locality, on settings, and where it can, for apprentices, it focuses on the workplace. It's really important that you talk about risks and awareness that's rooted in students, learners, apprentices, daily activities in their locality. Take account of local risks, not just national ones that are in the news. I mean, if you're in, I'm just going to pick one of the college groups in Kent. If you're in the East Kent College group, there will be different risks to learners in Dover compared with Folkestone, compared with Ramsgate. There are different risks in Maidstone. There are different risks in Chatham and Rochester. So think about that and make your safeguarding live to where your learners are and where they're working. For governors, not sure whether we've got any governors on the conference today. It would be nice if there were some. And for leaders and managers, just remember that the signal of effective governance and the signal of effective leadership, in other words, the impact, has to be clear. Um, we as inspectors will always ask, governors, what impact have you had? Tell us about something that you've done that has changed things. Not just that you've maintained an oversight of, but that has changed because of your influence and your action. And the same with leaders. What have you done in the last month that's actually improved the condition of the curriculum and learners' existence? And finally, just a note on safeguarding. Safeguarding's always been something of a problem area in further education and skills. I think it's fair to say that it's harder for colleges to maintain the quality of provision when it's subcontracted. And just remember that really, that everything that I've mentioned above applies to your subcontractors. So you should be passing on those messages and having just as high standards for your subcontractors as you would for home provision. Um, I looked across inspection reports and I tried to focus in on things that were mentioned over and over. Um, and this crosses across the past year really. Um, and these things curiously turn up both as strengths and as weaknesses, and I think they're the defining things in recent inspection reports. So the strengths in these five areas are what define outstanding and better providers, or good and better providers, outstanding providers, or they signify RI provision and inadequate provision. I'll run through these briefly. I've said some things about these. Think about curriculum. A course, a specification, a course outline, a standard is not a curriculum. A curriculum takes in all of the things that an apprentice or a student or a learner does. For a 16 to 19 student on study programs, that involves their English and maths where they're doing it, or their IT. That involves their personal development activities. The curriculum involves their community activities, their job focused activities. Um, it includes the way that staff inculcate positive behaviors and values. So the curriculum is all encompassing. And you must think in those terms, really. Connect your vocational curriculum to your personal development curriculum. I spoke earlier on about personal development needing to be active and engaging, and the need to see that as a curriculum and as part of the broader curriculum that each learner follows. Um, Inspectors will always ask about the various areas of a learner's curriculum, and that's how we will think when we come to visit you. Skills. In vocational courses and in apprenticeships, it's disappointing in the weaker cases that we see how little staff think about skills. If you're planning a year or a term or a week or even a lesson, you should think in terms of the skills that this session, this week, this month, this year, this unit, whatever it is, will develop. Um, it, I'm not a chaser of paperwork, but when I do look at curriculum plans or lesson plans, it's disappointing how rarely they talk about skills. Um, when I see, activities for learners will be, or activities for students will be, we very rarely see comments that say, after this session, the skills that learners gain are, and these connect to the previous skills that they learned, and these skills matter in their jobs or their lives because. So always have the skills right there in the front of your mind, and there's no question that that's what we see in good or outstanding providers. We nearly always see a close focus on skills. Doesn't just apply to apprenticeships. I think a lot of people feel that, oh yeah, skills is about workplaces and apprenticeships. It's not. It applies equally to academic, technical, to vocational study programs, and it applies just as much to folks who are doing GCSEs or A levels. um, Skills are important. The skills of analyzing historical documents, the skills of analyzing a text, the skills of presenting an argument in a legal format. Um, Skills development is key, and it's what underpins uh, clear, effective impact for learners. Support is an area that often impresses and often fails to match up to what it should, to be honest. There's a clear correlation between the strength and the speed and rapidity of support, and the success in inspection. In the best cases, what we see is support that is individualized. That's the key area for it, I would say. That's rapidly put in place and then is reviewed regularly, frequently. Um, that review process is really important. Whether this is academic support, skills support in the workplace, or whether it's personal support. Um, it's disappointing when we see support that is put in place, and maybe there'll be an end point for it and some milestones. Um, and then when it comes to an end, that's it. The book is closed, as it were. There should be review following support. So, is that learner now in a better position? Are they developing, looking upwards on that list, the skills they should? Are they engaging with their curriculum in the way they should? Are they managing their mental health difficulties? Are they managing their relationships with other learners? And if not, then does more support or different support needed to be applied? Um, in the weaker cases, what we see is support that comes as a block with no flexibility to it. It has an end point, and that is it. In the best cases, support is reviewed and is flexible and individualized. The fourth point, expectations for learners and apprentices. I'd add to that actually expectations for learners, apprentices, and staff. What marks out the best provision that we've seen in the past year or so is when expectations within a college are high for everybody, from the learner who's on day one of their course right the way through to somebody who's approaching the end of an apprenticeship or a course, and up through the staff involving you folks, the managers of the college, the leaders of the college, and the governors, so that everyone is challenging themselves. Everyone is expected to do more and better with each passing day. Um, in RI provision and in inadequate provision, what we invariably see is a lack of expectation, particularly for learners, students, apprentices. Um, and that crops up over and over in reports for RI providers and inadequate providers. I must have read so many sentences that say, staff have a low expectation for what learners can or should achieve. Um, and if you don't expect, if you don't challenge, then the learners won't raise their sights and aim higher. Um, and expectations will shift. That's the point about an active curriculum, um, and a flexible, reflective curriculum. Expectations will shift from week to week, from unit to unit, from month to month, from curriculum element to curriculum element. And again, that, just like with support, that process of reflection should kick in and engage with expectations. There shouldn't be a fixed expectation for a learner at day one that remains the same at the closing day of their program. The expectation should shift and flex, go up, go down, for different reasons appropriate to the stage of their curriculum. Finally, there, I mentioned safeguarding. Safeguarding is a key point. Um, eh, Providers do get judged inadequate if safeguarding is ineffective. We all know that, sadly, the young folks that we're all here for are under increasing pressures and increasing risks, and those now include a massive wave of online risks. It's one of the fallouts, isn't it, of the pandemic, that we see safeguarding risks online coming thick and fast at us. And I think we need to be mindful of those online risks as provision remains partly online. Um, it's no doubt that in the best colleges we see really robust safeguarding and measures in place for online provision, for online working, and helping students, learners, apprentices deal with the online world that they inhabit. Those are the key things. There are obviously other things that affect individual providers and their grading and the judgments that we make. But this slide and the two previous ones do capture most of the things that have echoed through reports. Actually, since the start of the EIF, we all know that we have had a long pause, but we introduced the EIF in 2019, then March 2020, things were suspended, and we've come back to it since September of last year. So um, these key points, I think, have rattled around since the beginning of the EIF. And I know that, looking through the sessions that you're involved in today, many of these things will crop up, and I'm sure many of the other speakers will talk about these in your breakouts and your main sessions. I hope that was helpful as a skim through inspection messages. Just moving now to some of the things that are on the horizon to keep you up to date, as it were, with Ofsted activity. T levels will affect many of you. I know that many of the colleges covered by this conference are involved with T levels. Government energy behind T levels is clear. Ministers, the Cabinet Office, the Department for Education have really pushed a weight behind T levels, and they're intended to take a major place in the college curriculum as the years go on. So we have been asked by the Department for Education to conduct a survey of T level implementation. It's a 2-year project to look at the way that T levels roll out across the further education sector in colleges and some other providers, but mainly in colleges. We're making 25 visits this year. We started the first one mid to late December, and they'll all be done by late April before the summer term really starts. All the colleges that are going to be visited already know, and we've agreed dates with them. The shape of the visits involves up to 3 days of a visit, and there'll usually be one inspector per route. And the routes currently available, in case you're not aware of that, the routes currently available in T levels are construction, education and care, digital, and health and science. So those 4 routes are ones that we're looking at, and if we turn up at your college, we'll come with one inspector per route. Um, and they may be there for 3 days. Most cases, they're not. It's up to 3 days. If the numbers are huge, we'll be there for 3 days, but in most cases, we're not going to be there for 3 days. We may be there 1 day. Um, just a reminder that this is a survey activity, so there are no grades, there are no judgments about individual colleges. We'll produce an interim report that'll come in September of this year. We'll do another range of visits from September through till probably April again in 23, and probably take another 25 visits, 30 visits, and then we'll produce the final report. So the final report will be on 2 years worth of visits. While that is going on, the survey, T-level provision will not be in scope for inspection. We recognise, the Department for Education recognises that something as big as the T-level development really needs a bit of time to find its feet. You folks need time to work out your strategies, work out your employer placements, your curriculum strategies and intent, and that all takes time with such a new range of provisions. So we're not going to inspect T levels until that final report comes out in September 23. So that's the earliest point at which T levels will start to be inspected, in September 23. And our interim report and our final report will not talk about individual providers. This is more about the launch of the provision than the way that individuals are dealing with it. We're not going to refer to any particular college or department or anything else in the interim and the final report. It'll just talk about the way that T levels are being rolled out. And that involves also the T level transition programs. For those of you that don't know, there is a transition program that learners can enroll on, which is meant to be a precursor to a full T level. The T level sits at level 3. The transition programs are meant to bring people up to that level, and they should be suitably demanding, and they should enroll people who have the capacity to go on to T levels. What we shouldn't be seeing is people enrolling on transition programs and then not making that transition into T levels. So it's important that the right people are on the right courses for both the transition and the T level provision. The other big survey that we're doing, starting the end of last term, again in December, is a survey of skills, what are called skills boot camps. And most of these are actually in ILPs, though there is some discussion about opening some of these through colleges. So this stuff may become relevant to you folks. They're training programs that started in 2020. They were set off by what was then called the FE White Paper and is now called the Skills Bill. And the idea is to upskill, to increase and enhance the skills of adults, including adults in work. And the programs are about 12 to 16 weeks. A lot of them are 15, in fact, but 12 to 16 weeks. They often involve, but don't have to involve, qualifications. And the expectation is that the outcome will be that around 70% of the people who do these boot camp courses will either move into a new job or a new role. So they're intended for, let's just say, for folks working in digital, to enhance their skills, to give them a new level of skills, so they might get a promotion into digital design or into, digital text creation. So they're about enhancing adult skills. And our survey of this, just like the T-level survey, is looking at how this is rolling out. We'll visit, I think it's 16 now providers. It's starting off. We just started these. Again, like the T-levels, we're not going to produce individual reports. It's a kind of state of the nation um, review report that we'll produce. But most of it applies to ILPs. It may come into the college sector. So just for your information on that, really. I said at the beginning, just a reminder of the sexual harassment and safeguarding review that we conducted. You'll remember that was kicked off by the establishment of a website that asked people for their kind of testimony about sexual harassment and safeguarding. That really brought forth an avalanche of testimonies, largely from school students, but also from some students in colleges and some in universities too. So there was a level of college involvement in all of that, and there were testimonies on the website about harassment in colleges. As a result, Ofsted conducted a nationwide review, visited a vast number of schools and a number of colleges, a smaller number of colleges. That was published during the summer of 21. If you want to see that, it's there. The link is there. Some of it is quite shocking reading. And if you want to inform your safeguarding, inform your practice in terms of safeguarding and sexual harassment, I suggest you have a dip into that report. It's quite harrowing in places, and it's quite a salutary reminder of what some learners have to go through in their schooling and their education. As a result of that review and what we discovered, we will ask about how you're safeguarding learners from sexual harassment. Um, and as of November of last year, we will assume that there is some level of that going on, because that's what all of the evidence told us, that even when it's not reported, low level to high level sexual harassment will be continuing. And it might not just have been reported or identified. We will want to see any records that do exist of reported cases and concerns, and we will follow those through and ask for an account of what's happened. And inspectors may want to meet with groups of learners, groups of students, organised by gender or by the student's own identification. We're obviously sensitive to the fact that people identify differently in terms of gender, or have no gender identification at all in some cases, and we're sensitive to those things. So we'll meet learners in any way that they're comfortable in settings that mean that male or female or non-binary learners don't feel oppressed by speaking in a group that's uncomfortable for them. We'll try to make those groups as amenable and as comfortable for any learners with any identification at all. The outcomes of whatever we find will be reflected in the L&M grade through the safeguarding section of the report, the safeguarding section of the inspection report, and it will affect that judgment that we make whether safeguarding in the college is effective or ineffective. Okay, so as I say, I suggest you have a look at the review. It's fascinating and shocking reading. The spending review for those of you that aren't familiar with it, it periodically, usually every 3 or 5 years, there's a spending review. It's conducted by the Treasury, and it basically takes stock of what's going on, and that's where we get our funding from. So that kind of shapes our activities. There was a spending review outcome last November, and that shapes our activities coming up to probably till 2025. Um, and certain things here have rolled out of that spending review. In other words, the funding for us. Um, the first bullet there, up till September of this year, we'll carry on as we were inspecting, in line with the timescale set out in our current handbook and inspection information. The link to the FE and Skills handbook is there. So that takes us through to September of this year. Then there's quite a shift. From September of this year to September of 2025, in other words, across a 3-year period, we will inspect every college with a full inspection. And that might be more than once for some. That's a big change. That means that for colleges, short inspections stop. If you're a good college, you will no longer get a short inspection, you will get a full inspection. And if you're a previously outstanding college, you will still get a full inspection. So every single college can expect an inspection between September 22 and September 25. Um, Other providers, that's ILPs and community learning providers, will get an inspection between April of this year and 2025, if only if they run apprenticeships, and most of them do. So that applies to many ILPs. But for the college sector, that 3-year window means you will get a full inspection. We will be updating the FES handbook, and that link that's there will take you to it. Whatever version is live will take you to the latest version. So when you get the slides from this, hang on to that link, and the handbook will be updated to reflect the current situation and the changes that apply. The handbook is such a useful thing. If you're not aware of it, if you don't use it, I suggest you do. It's the book of answers. Um, it explains what we do, how we do it, and why we do it. So use that link if you're not familiar with it. Just a quick mention on this slide of the spending review impact on new providers. Again, it'll be in the handbook, and the link is there. The basic outcome of this is in that second bullet. From April of this year, the window for new provider monitoring visits and the window for the subsequent inspection of new providers will be reduced from 24 months to 18 months, so that we get through providers a lot faster. Another feature that's coming out of the spending review and from the FE white paper that was published last year. It's now called the Skills Bill. It's gone from being a white paper to being a bill, making its way through the House of through Parliament. It asks us to comment on the way that colleges contribute to meeting skills needs. It started out as local skills needs, but that has broadened since. And we really will be talking about the ways that colleges liaise with employers, liaise with other providers, liaise with community organisations, liaise with local authorities, and the ways that they identify and meet skills. And those skills might be local skills gaps and local skills needs. They might be regional, cross Kent and Essex maybe, or they might be national skills needs. For example, a sixth form college that just does A levels might meet a national need for well qualified undergraduates. A general further education college might meet a national need for highly trained aerospace engineers. The skills focus will be anything from very local with local employers right out to a national skills need. We've always looked at this to some extent in our inspections. We're going to be doing more of that from September 22, and we'll be having conversations with curriculum leaders about how they engage with employers, how they identify skills needs, and be having conversations with leaders and managers in a similar way. And we'll be talking to the folk that colleges liaise with, so their stakeholders, their partners, the employers that they engage with to identify skills needs. Um, we're piloting those inspections at the moment, and we're piloting, in fact, in some of the colleges in Kent, for which thank you. And we'll be doing the final pilots towards the end of this term and early summer, and then we'll shape our methodology for these new inspections. This will apply to all colleges, sixth form colleges, GFEs, land-based colleges, right the way across the college sector. So it will be a change in terms of our inspection focus and activity. So start thinking about how you meet skills needs and about the skills. I talked about skills earlier on in the curriculum. Think about the skills that your learners are developing and how those are then taken out to meet national, local, or regional needs. Okay.
Okay, Richard,
Yeah,
hopefully all of that's going very, very well. Sorry to interject, but
that's
we've
okay.
reached the 10 o'clock point.
Yeah.
Um, Thank you very much for your presentation. I'm sure everybody's found that very, very helpful. We've kind of a little bit timed out on Q&A. I did notice there's
Okay.
only one question,
All
and it
right.
might be in the Q&A that you prefer just to write an answer into the Q&A column against it.
I can certainly do that if you'd like. Yeah, no problem at all. And Mark, I'm very happy actually to have folks if they perhaps want to email you or I'm happy to deal with things that might occur to people shortly after this presentation because I know what it's like in an event like this. People, the question occurs after they've logged off today. So if you want to pass things to me, I'll try to respond.
Okay, that's brilliant. What I'll do is I'll put my email for KFE into the chat function, and then if people have got specific questions for you or indeed any of our other speakers today, I can then relay them to you to save you being inundated with dozens of different emails.
Absolutely. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, that's brilliant. Well, again, Richard, thank you very much for joining us. As you pointed out at the beginning, a bit of a veteran on
Yeah,
this
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
with
I enjoy
KFE
it
now,
very
but it is
much.
hugely appreciated. And yeah, I hope that all goes well for the rest of the year ahead.
Thanks
And
very much,
again,
Mark.
thank you.
Events like this are really important and really, really valuable. So happy to help at any time. And I hope the rest of the morning day goes well.
Okay, thank you very much. I will bid you farewell and
Okie doke.
catch up soon. Thank you.
Yeah, all the best. Cheers now. Bye, folks.
Hopefully everyone found that a very enjoyable session. We're at that point where we will be shortly making some more movements around the various conference halls. So just to reiterate, if you are participating in the Tony Davis session, that is very strictly limited. And we have a delegate number of roughly 50-55 for that one with Tony. And because of the nature of the content, it's really important that we stick to those that have actually registered for it as per the program, which I've shared already. So if you're not in the Tony Davis session, which is remaining in this central hall, and you are in the Kelly Hannigan session with the education people around mental health, it's now time to move to there, please. If you are not in the conference any further, it's probably recommended that you come out of Remo for the time being. I would just like to advise colleagues out there that are in the Tony Davis session, when I come off the screen in a moment and we revert to table mode, if you go to the second floor using the left-hand floor buttons, you will repopulate on the second floor of this main hall, and that should mean that we avoid having too many people still remaining that are not meant to actually be in the session. It's almost the only way around I can think of avoiding that slight hiccup at the beginning, and then hopefully Tony can take us from there. It'll be really important because Tony's session does depend on some small group work around the tables as well. So ideally, we're hoping that you will sort of eventually spread yourselves out into sort of groups of 4 around the tables on the second floor if you're in the Tony Davis session. So please all start moving now, and we will regroup some of you for Kelly Hannigan's session in the left hall, and obviously those for Tony stay here and go up.